Life had been easy for the BMW S1000R. You really had to dig deep into your pockets to buy such a four-cylinder power naked, and now Honda comes along this year with a proper price bomb, the 1100 SP in Germany for just 12,300 euros. Right, we have to compare them. Let's go, stay with us. So how did the two of us lucky ones even get the chance to do this comparison? You can already see the HJC helmets in all their glory in front of us. You've got the F100 and I've got the RV12 in that Mad Venom design from Marvel. We're guests at HJC. We were allowed to check out their factory, or actually it's more like the warehouse. The factories are in Vietnam. They've got two of them now. 500,000 helmets are made for Europe. We had a look at the warehouse, which can hold between 180,000 and 200,000. Really impressive here near Strasbourg. And what else is close to Strasbourg? The Vosges, that mid-range mountain region in France, where we spent the day winding through the glorious curves on these two naked bikes. Let's start with the engines, all right? Two inline-fours. What sort of performance figures are we looking at?
So inline-four cylinders, both bikes have 1000 cubic centimeters. The BMW gives us 170 horsepower and the Hornet SP version puts out 157 horsepower. It's got a bit more power than the standard Hornet.
Exactly. Do you remember the torque figures too?
The Hornet SP puts out 107 Newton meters and the BMW delivers 114 Newton meters. So they're pretty close in that regard.
Absolutely. On paper, it's a really tight duel. And this time, I'd like us to jump straight into riding impressions. What's it like? How do they feel so close? When you switch from the Hornet to the BMW, does it feel like the same engine, just in either a Japanese or Bavarian chassis?
No, you do notice clear differences. With the Honda, for instance, sure, the engine has been continuously updated and meets Euro 5+, but essentially it's still an older engine. It's the engine from the Fireblade, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially when it comes to the sound. When you open the throttle, you get that classic intake growl from a four-cylinder, bit dirty sounding. During the sound check, there's still a bit of crackle coming from the back. It's all a bit old school with the Honda, and that's how the engine behaves too. Below 6,000 RPM, yeah, it accelerates, but the real party only starts beyond 6,000, maybe even 7. It's proper old school four-cylinder behavior. If you look over at the BMW, the S1000R engine is a more modern unit, and you can feel that straight away in the throttle response. You don't have to wait until 6,000 RPM for it to come alive. It pulls cleanly from low revs, especially since we've now got the short throw throttle fitted as standard on the 2025 S1000R. That makes everything respond a bit more sharply.
Yeah, like you said, older design, and I think that also shows in how it responds to throttle input. When I put the Honda into sport mode, it feels really digital. Throttle open is 100%, throttle off is 0. There's a longer throttle travel, so you can modulate it a bit, but it's very abrupt and leads to load changes you might not otherwise get. I feel like the engine itself wouldn't be that jumpy, but the tuning is maybe just a bit too aggressive, at least for what we're doing here on country roads. Worth mentioning, Niels will be riding this bike more aggressively next week with Martin Bauer and Sonko, and there'll be another video online then. So if hardcore riding's your thing, definitely check that out. But for country roads, for me, it was just a bit too much. Road mode is better, but then you get that lag before anything really happens. The BMW engine is completely different in that regard. Even in tight corners, first gear, second gear, you can open the throttle, even in the sharper dynamic mode. We've even got the Dynamic Pro mode on this one. We'll talk about features in a bit because that 4,000 euro price difference doesn't tell the full story. The BMW does come with some extras. So go on, what all is included with the BMW?
Right, we should definitely mention that you just said 4,000 euros difference, but that's only half the truth. What we've got here is a BMW with the comfort package, which includes heated grips and cruise control, and the dynamic package that already bumps the price up. Plus there's this gorgeous paint job. The blue with the yellow rear frame, I think it's a real highlight. I even prefer it over the M package. But that'll set you back another 420 euros in Germany. So as it stands, this BMW costs just shy of 20,000 euros. Meanwhile, the Hornet sticks to its 12,300 euros, so the gap grows significantly. It's worth noting too, you can configure the Hornet with extras from Honda, but it's mostly visual stuff like top cases or maybe a belly pan. Our test bike already has a tail tidy and aftermarket levers, but those aren't from Honda directly, they are third-party accessories. So if you buy the Hornet as it stands here for 12,300 euros, it comes fully equipped. You get a quick shifter, Öhlins rear suspension, and what I think is a really stunning paint job. That's honestly the main reason I'd go for the SP.
Paint job's a good keyword. The stickers on the Honda, for example, aren't lacquered over. So you can really see where they've cut corners to save costs. But yeah, it's a budget-friendly bike. And earlier we were talking about the engine, but even the best engine's useless without a proper gearbox. How does that look?
That's true. The Honda Gearbox, again in the SP version, comes with a quick shifter as standard. And that really won me over. No matter the situation, whether you're accelerating or off throttle, you can shift up and down. It gives really clear feedback. I always know the gear's engaged. And that, in my opinion, is exactly what the BMW doesn't do well. Even though it also has a quick shifter, the gearbox feels vague, doughy. I never quite know, has the gear gone in or not? There's no firm, reassuring click like you get with the Honda. So in that sense, I was a bit disappointed with BMW's gearbox.
That's interesting, Howie, because I didn't quite feel that way about the quick shifter on the Bavarian. I do agree with the doughy part. Felt the same, like it's not particularly crisp, but otherwise, I mean, maybe I just stomp harder. I actually think it works well in most situations, probably better at speed than when you're just pottering about. And while we're on engines, there's another point that comes to mind. Doing 60, 50, even 40 kilometers per hour in sixth gear, whether in town or out, it's no problem on either of them. That's one of the great things about inline fours, really. You don't need to be constantly shifting. Exactly. That brings us to ergonomics. Both are power nakeds aimed in a similar direction, but once you sat on them, you do notice a few differences in feel. At least that's how it felt for me. What about you, Howie? I'm 1.87 m, you're 1.75, just so the viewers can get an idea.
Right, so the seat heights on both bikes are fine for me. I can get both feet down, feel planted. The real difference comes with the handlebars. You can see it even just looking at the bikes. The BMW has a nearly flat handlebar mounted quite low. Even standing still, you already feel really connected to the front wheel. The Honda is the opposite. The handlebar is narrower and comes back towards the rider, which gives a much more relaxed feel and riding triangle. But that also means I get significantly less feedback from the front end. It encourages a more laid-back ride.
I'm with you on that. The Honda is definitely the more comfortable bike when it comes to angles, knee angle, hip angle, the lean forward posture. It doesn't put much strain on you, but I feel a bit out of place on it. I wouldn't go as far as to call it chopper-like, but yeah, you kind of perch on it. It's fine for cruising, but I miss a bit of seriousness when it comes to sporty riding. And the seat, honestly, is not comfortable at all. Again, it shows the cost cutting and the price gap compared to the BMW. Because while the BMW seat isn't super plush either, it's just that bit better, maybe due to the materials or padding. It was enough for me. Whereas on the Honda, those two rails running underneath the seat eventually started making themselves felt on my rear end. Yeah, the BMW's knee bend is quite a bit sharper. This front wheel focused riding position, the handlebar width, it suits me perfectly with my height. Actually, ergonomically overall, you feel like you're holding the front tire in your hands. I think that's how Scharf once put it. It's really brilliant. The BMW just makes it easy to ride quickly. It helps you through corners, while the Honda always feels like a bit of work.
Yeah, of course.
And speaking of easy riding, let's talk about suspension on these two bikes. You already mentioned it. The BMW comes with the ESA suspension, meaning electronic semi-active at the front and rear. The Honda doesn't have that, not even as an option. We've got a Showa upside-down fork at the front and the Öhlins STX36 shock at the rear, fully adjustable, so it's quality kit, no doubt. But I found that the front didn't quite keep up with the rear on the Honda. At the back, it was really responsive, handled everything beautifully, but I wasn't fully convinced by the front fork. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. To be fair, we only had half a day with the bikes today, so if you spend time setting it up properly or had an expert dial it in for your weight, you could probably improve things. We were riding them in the base setup, and with that, I had exactly the same impression. The fork didn't quite match the quality of the Öhlins rear.
On the BMW, the ESA is easy to explain, really. You've got two modes, dynamic and road, and in reality, they do exactly what they promise. Dynamic makes everything firmer, road is more comfortable, smooths out the bumps really well. We had some speed bumps in down, and when you switch directly between modes, you notice how the fork senses the hit and adjusts the damping in real time. That's the advantage of semi-active suspension. You simply can't replicate that with a conventional setup. So yeah, you have to pay more, but at least with BMW, the option is there. And even when you ride it hard on good asphalt like we had here in the Vosges, it stays super stable. It never gets overly stiff, nor does it need to. There's always some residual damping available. Honestly, it's very, very well developed. I wouldn't know what else to ask for in that regard.
And we can also spoke especially over the suspension, because we've even got matching tires on both bikes today, which wasn't planned, but we're really glad about it. Both are fitted with the Bridgestone S22, so that gave us a great direct comparison while you hitting a gadfly.
Flies get to live, gadflies don't. If you think otherwise, or if you've got anything to say about the video, leave a comment. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more animal harming content.
And if you were wearing headphones just now, my condolences to your ears. They're probably done for after you slapped the mic like that, so yeah.
You mentioned the S22 already, still the benchmark tire for me on any sporty naked bike. There's already the successor, the S23, but that mainly focuses on wet performance. So the S22 is still absolutely top. And paired with really solid brakes on both bikes, I had a blast today. Late braking into corners, no problem at all. And again, I think the BMW edges it slightly here. The Honda doesn't have a noticeable tendency to stand up under braking or anything like that, but it just doesn't feel as confidence-inspiring. I'll bring it back to the seating position. I just don't feel as clearly what's happening beneath me. And so, with the same tires, I felt more confident braking on the BMW. Was it different for you, or would you agree?
I agree, but again, it really comes down to riding position. On the BMW, I've got more weight over the bars, more weight over the front. And while we were riding, we both kept thinking, this feels closest to a super sport bike in the naked segment, just because you're so in touch with the front end. With the BMW, with the Honda, it's the opposite. I sit upright, comfortably, with high handlebars that let me steer nicely through corners. But again, without that certain level of feedback. Our cameraman Marcello, who's just come back from a trip, said, well, if I've got front end feel, great. If I don't, I still trust the Bridgestone tires.
It works for a while until it doesn't. Hopefully we never find out, right? And you mentioned Supersport. True, both of these bikes have Supersport DNA. It's more obvious on the BMW, but actually that used to be something I didn't like about the S1000R, that it was too super sporty. But in the latest generation, I feel like they've toned that down a bit. What do I mean? For one thing, the engine's got shorter gearing now, which really helps. 170 horsepower is also a slight bump from before, and it's excellent. And that wide handlebar, what a joy.
Speaking of wide handlebars, now that I'm taking a step back and looking at the bike again, we've actually fitted bar end mirrors here. Normally it comes with standard mirrors, and maybe those add a bit more weight to the bars. Because even on the 2025 model, we still experience that classic S1000R four-cylinder issue, massive vibrations through the handlebars. And not just a little buzz or tingle, it was genuinely tiring on the hands. After a while, you start to get that numb feeling. Maybe it's the bar end mirrors, I don't know. If anyone out there knows more about bar weights and vibration dampening, please leave a comment. That's my theory for today. You'd really need to compare it directly with the stock mirrors, but it definitely stood out to me.
Yeah, I had the same experience with the vibrations. Over a long stretch, that could be annoying if you're sensitive to that sort of thing. One more downside, in terms of that super sport connection between these two bikes, what's not super sport-like on the Honda is that extremely wide tank. It really forces your legs apart. I think that also stops me from being able to move properly forward. Maybe that's another thing making the riding position feel a bit too relaxed. And while we're on the topic of build quality, Honda's got a great reputation to uphold, but if you take a closer look at the Hornet, I'm not sure it quite lives up to it. As I said before, the stickers aren't lacquered over, and the overall finish just isn't what I'd expect from Honda. Another example, there's this gap, I call it the hole. The 4-cylinder engine sits deep inside the frame, and behind it, on the left-hand side, there's enough room to hide a football. And alright, if it's a naked bike, fine, things are visible, but the way all the cables and hoses are just crisscrossing through there, it looks a bit messy. I feel like they could have put a bit more care into it. The BMW handles that much better, though of course for a higher price. Does that bother you, or would you accept it at this price?
I've got to admit, I didn't really notice the hole. I just thought, naked bike, fair enough, I can see everything, that's fine. But yeah, like you said, the stickers aren't lacquered over. Some of the plastics creak a bit, it's not the nicest. But if you look at the smaller Honda Hornet 750, that was also a budget bike. People complained about the box section swing arm, said it wasn't okay, but they bought it anyway. Because even if they had to cut a few corners here and there, it's still Honda quality. I reckon it'll still be running in 20 years if you look after it properly. And that's what customers care about. They know they're getting a Honda, it's reliable even if it doesn't look super fancy. And at the end of the day, compared to a BMW, you've saved about 7,000 euros.
True. And one more thing we didn't fully go through earlier, equipment features. The Hornet SP doesn't offer lean-sensitive traction control. The ABS is basic, especially compared to BMW's cornering ABS. It does have riding modes, sure, but the switchgear, you already mentioned the Hornet 750, it's the same unit used on the CB650R too. So while you've got a 1000cc engine, other parts are from cheaper models. You've got to accept that. Visually, it's more distinct from the 750 now, but for me, that mix would be a bit of a turn-off. And speaking of turn-offs, let's get to the conclusion. One bike costs 12,300 euros, the other nearly 20,000. Are they in the same league, or is this half a class of difference? How do you see it, and what do you think customers will think? Will people be put off from buying the Hornet, or will they say, Honda quality, decent price, what could go wrong? Go for it. Sorry, that was a very long question.
A lot of questions, yeah. So, are they in the same league? Definitely. Both are 1000cc power nakeds from the year 2025. 157 horsepower, 170 horsepower. They're absolutely in the same category. Next question was...
Will the Hornet eat into the S1000R's market?
No, not at all. I think anyone buying a S1000R is doing so because they want a S1000R. They might want to ride sporty on country roads or blast around the Vienna Ring at 160.
Please don't take that as encouragement.
Definitely not. But if you know, you know. So I really don't think the two customer groups overlap much. The Honda buyer is very price conscious. Maybe they've always had a Honda, maybe they had a Hornet years ago, and now they see it's back with aggressive styling. So yeah, I don't think there's much crossover in buyers. Was there another question?
I think you nailed it. You already touched on the target audience. They'll forgive certain things, buy the bike and think loads of power at a fair price.
Forgive? I don't think there's anything to forgive. The Hornet looks totally familiar. There's no surprise, no forgiveness needed.
I just meant things like exposed cables or the stickers not being lacquered, little things.
That just means the workshop has half an hour less work because they don't have to remove so much.
You pragmatist, I'm a bit harsh on Honda here because I had really high hopes. I thought finally a proper 1000cc naked from Honda. I did a long tour on it, and this reminds me so much of the CB1000R. the Neo Sports Cafe, which had the same issues. A bit too heavy, an engine that only makes power high up. I'd love to see an SPS version with semi-active suspension, but truth be told, they probably need to redesign the engine completely to solve these quirks. So for me, the Honda's not the one. I'm really happy with the BMW. That was today's aha moment. I never really liked this bike before, I'll admit that openly. But in this 2025 version, I honestly can't think of anything that still needs improving. Alright, the looks are a bit generic. They all kind of look the same in the power naked segment these days. But speaking of looks, someone's been hiding back there. Maybe one or two of you already spotted it. We also had the Ducati Street Fighter 5 4S with us today. And there's a second video coming from our HJC trip. What should a power naked really cost? 12,000, 16,000 or 26,000. So if that sounds interesting, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And Howie, thanks for going through this video with me. T, thanks to you all for sticking around until the end. And with that, I'm signing off from France. Marcello, our beast.
Behind the camera. Thanks to you too.
Take care.
Thanks everyone. Cheers.